So, but otherwise, it will be available for meditating from 5:30 p.m. and after the 6:30 meeting as well. And would anyone who wants to learn the turning and who has already not let us know, please do so as soon as possible. The new course will probably be starting after Easter.
Corin, who is in mind? Do you know, as instructor of the next class? You haven't worked it out. It won't be before the spring weather, I hope.
The Japanese prints on show on the landing will shortly be put up for sale at Sotheby's, and so we thought that people might like to have a chance of seeing them before they were sold. They were given to the Society some time ago and have now become quite valuable.
They were given to the Society by the editor of the studio at that time, whose father had collected them in Japan. At the time when he went out to Mexico with Colin Smith. They greatly increased in value.
The last sentence simply says the proceeds will be put into the Society's fund, which, as you probably know, have been feeling the strain a bit.
These are only a few of them, of course. About the material at the meetings, I don't think we can do this too often because people can take the ray of creation intellectually or with formative center, and it might create a further fog separating them from the dive to complete peace of soul and mind and body in the meditation. But I must say I was exceedingly thrilled to see that from the reactions of the new groups, for instance, how much alive the ray of creation is today, because we first had it 40 years ago, some of us. And I'd rather like to read you something about one of the two new groups, the Garth meeting, although most of them aren't here. This is the impact on people who mostly hadn't heard it before, in 1974.
Read the top. This is from Mrs. Garth. We started almost immediately with the diagram being put up, and the whole of the meeting centered entirely on the visual impact of it and the ideas behind it. I could not help being aware that this made an absolutely different type of meeting to the usual. Not better or less good, but just different. Looking every so often at the rows of faces in front of one, it was clear that everyone there was absorbed and interested in something common to all. And the look of the personal problem and the struggle to express it was quite absent. This made it, to me, an outstanding meeting. All the physical attitudes were so different too. Perhaps the very idea of a diagram was a kind of shock. Because of this, not very much was said, but there were some questions.
Let's hear them.
Ronald Hyde, the ray of creation. What does it mean? Should we go on to finish the next one?
No, I think that's the important part of this question. It expresses a way of putting together known facts, which otherwise are so often disconnected. Come up in front, room up here. 40 years ago, many of the facts we know now are certainly proved about the physical aspect of the universe were quite unknown. Nobody then had been to the moon. Nobody then had space probes and so on. But everything that they've discovered has so far borne out what Mr. Spencer was at pains to explain to us. What hasn't been discovered and can't be discovered by a purely physical application of science is that everything in the universe is alive, has its own psychology, and its own degree of consciousness. That is reflection of the great consciousness and mind behind the universe. Along with that, even standing on the moon and walking about on it hasn't proved to the scientists that what the system says, that the moon is as yet unborn and will one day become like the Earth. It's true. All they've discovered is, what wasn't known 40 years ago, that they consider that the moon is now dead. It was thought to be a corpse in our time. But now it's proved that there are internal fires, volcanic activity, and radiation field. So that this framework of knowledge remains, whereas the knowledge that it points to keeps changing. Any questions about that? That's it. From the physical side only. Well, then we'd better go on with the ones at the guards' meeting.
Should we ask that one?
No, I don't think that.
This is John Berman. Is the Earth the only part that has physical life?
That has been answered in the material. What the ray of creation helps us to see is that a further step in the fact that man, as we know him here on this little earth, is not the center of the universe, the physical universe. Before Copernicus, it was thought that our Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around it. Then came Copernicus and the view that the planets were revolving around the sun, but that the sun was the center of the universe. And then has come, since then, a further realization that there must be, among the uncountable number of stars, many that have, like our sun, planetary systems. Although we have no way of apprehending whether the nearest star, 3 or 4 light years away, has a planetary system. We've no way of apprehending it. The only planetary system we know is our own. But the scientists feel that the odds are strongly on the fact that 100,000 stars at least must have planetary systems, and of those a number must have other experiments than our own Homo sapiens in creating self-evolving beings. So I said that it wouldn't matter to the great creation, of which this way of creation is only one of many, if industry in England or this present civilization or the Earth itself or any constituent of our local solar system disappeared completely. So we don't have to worry too much. It won't affect the whole thing. So, in answer to John Berman, though we think that the Earth is the only planet in our planetary system that at the present time carries physical life, we can't get any evidence so far for life on any other planet, yet the probability is that our Earth is not the only one in the universe.
And then Gerald Beckwith referred to the square of pure consciousness, the interval, and he asked, how is it separate?
It isn't separate, no. It's only that the absolute in the big ray goes on, is always there. But at certain times in there, the impulse to create worlds occurs and is carried through. When the absolute creates worlds, we're taught in our system that it makes a plan, a master plan, a blueprint, and then leaves it to be carried out without interfering or demanding anything from the creation. And this has regard to Gerald Beckwith's other question. The Shankaracharya says love is unconditional and there is no place in the kingdom of love for demands and rewards. And he asks for guidance to promote this attitude. And one of the forms of guidance the Shankaracharya uses is that the Absolute creates but demands nothing back from his creation, doesn't impose anything, lets it have a free development according to the rules, the laws of nature that he's laid down, and that any strange things that happen were a calculated risk, and man's troubles are not brought by some god outside upon man, but are the results of man himself. Any questions about that? And in promoting our love for each other and for the Paramatman, we shouldn't make any demands either. If we love, we accept the person we love in all their aspects. Not very good at doing that. Any questions there?
Edward Fairbairn, I can't get orientated vis-a-vis myself. How can you explain absolute all and absolute nothing?
Well, I have no intention of explaining those things, but I would like to help Edward Fairbairn to get orientated vis-a-vis himself. That's what I'm trying to do for me. If one can do that, then these very far away and distant questions could be asked from the one who knows. But you can take it quite simply that beyond the moon in the way of creation, there is nothing. If you show me something, then I revoke the statement.
John Berman, is everything progressing to the absolute or pure consciousness?
Not everything, no. The whole idea of fair play and natural selection means that there is free competition. Some will develop towards consciousness and some will not. But you cannot appreciate light unless there's darkness. You cannot appreciate consciousness unless you see mechanicalness. So there's scope for all kinds in this marvelous universe.
Gerald Beckwith again. In the vibrations coming down, are there bad influences as well as good?
This is a very knotty point, and several people have invented a big devil up aloft, like Milton's Satan. This is a very knotty point, and several people have invented a big devil up aloft, like Milton's Satan. And it's a convenient idea to have because one can blame everything on the big devil. I must say I've never found any evidence for it myself. Take what the system says about planetary influences. It says the influence of the planets pervades all organic life on Earth, the thin film of the biosphere. Suddenly some violence occurs, some war, some slaughter, and men believe that they are fighting in a just cause and killing each other in the name of religion or something like that. In reality, it's simply that two or more of the planets have come a little bit closer than usual. And for a long time afterwards, this happened just momentarily for them, but for a long time afterwards, people kill each other with the best intentions. So the evil is not in the planet coming a little closer than perhaps they were meant to, but in the sort of people who react to being shaken by some external circumstances by violence. A lot of people don't react like that. In India, there is a belief that the conjunction of 5 planets, which happened a few years ago, meant something. In Germany, there's great excitement about them and about the comet because they think it presages the end of the world or something. But if you don't want to be shaken up in the wrong way, it's up to you. So, any questions about that? Does someone like to have the idea that there's an evil influence, or there are evil influences coming from higher up in the ray?
Would you say this influence comes through excess of rajas?
Yes, I feel that any shaking up will have its effect, violent effect, on people who are full of rajas, or a part of the world where this is in excess. It's temporary. One must remember it's temporary, because the moon, like the great weight on the pendulum of a grandfather clock, keeps everything in organic life, keeps the mechanism going, and restores the status quo. It used to be said in our system that in some parts of the world, like Turkestan and Middle East, Far East, some of the young people got too free from the moon. and began to bounce. And all sorts of violent things happened. I don't know, I could never prove the truth of that.
How far should one go with the idea that some of the worlds are higher, some lower?
Yeah. I don't think that this is justifiable in what we're being taught now, that everything has its right place, and the only evil in the universe is when something or somebody gets into the wrong place, or some set of actions appears in the wrong place or at the wrong time. But I don't think that you could say that anything is separate, higher or lower. It's all part of one whole body of the Paramatma.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What is... It's a quotation that I very nearly got, but it's the principalities and powers one. What is it you don't do against principalities and powers? Yes. Miss Simpson wants to know what it means, but if I can't quote it,
Could anyone shout the question out?
It's a quotation.
Quotation out.
It's from the Bible, yes. Wrestle, that's the word. We wrestle not against powers and principalities. But not...
It's St. Paul, is
yes,
it?
St. Paul.
Yes. I think I can't say what he meant at all. I think you will have to get an expert on the subject. Many things have been said as humanity were advancing towards true knowledge, some of which remain true today and some don't. In any case, about all that, we're only putting this way of creation up in order to be able to look at it from three levels. First of all, just on a physical level, from what knowledge we have to find our way about. But for our own self-realization, individual self-realization, what matters is to see this way of creation on the subtle level and then on the causal level. We see bodies, three-dimensional bodies. What holds them all together? What sets them in motion? What are the causes of phenomena that happen in the physical universe? This we can get by going inwards and finding the same thing in ourselves, because the whole way of creation, the whole of the smaller ray developing from the larger one, starting in the unmanifest sun, which you'll be studying this week, is in every man, every individual man, in potentia. We have in us these various worlds represented in the small octave. But it should be an impetus for trying to get to the unmanifested sun within ourselves.
Would you like another question?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it Mrs. Tobler? Ah, yes. I don't understand what it means, the unmanifested sun.
You have to take a deep dive and find out. Do you really think that the sun's disk, which we see, is the cause of all that happens in the solar system? If you can prove that to me, I shall accept your idea that there is no unmanifested entity which reveals itself in the manifest sun. It's quite simple.
Would it be like soul? Soul of the sun?
No, be like your own spirit, your own divine self. For a great deal of the time, it's unmanifest. You don't know it's there. But something is always there, whether manifest or not. The unmanifest sun corresponds to what the Shankaracharya calls the Paramatman of the solar system. There's a bigger manifestation of the Paramatman in the big universe as a whole. But we can conveniently conceive of a self of the solar system, of which all the individual selves or atmans of each of us is of the same substance. And they're all one. But only occasionally is the spirit manifest in each of us. We'd like to have it much more of. I can't think of any other way than to encourage you to get this deep dive and get the peace. Because suddenly the causal significance, the spiritual significance of the ray of creation will become apparent.
I never really been understand the question of the numbers rating here. Should we pay attention to these numbers of orders of laws? And have they any significance, or are they to be taken literally, just in terms of their powers of numbers? What is the significance of them?
The beginning of the significance of them, Mr. Gill, is that matter doubles its density as it gets further and further from the center of the universe. Density, in the same sense, is density of a population. You see, and this doubling of the density as the world becomes more complicated as it gets further from the source means that we are under more and more laws, whereas in the Paramatman, the self of the solar system, it's a law unto itself. Then one sees the three gunas, or the three forces, the three aspects of this law on the next level, well, three on that diagram. And then on the level below, these have become rigid. And there are six possibilities. The combination of three forces, work it out, there are only six. And these have become rigid laws, which become more complicated, more complicated, more complicated as one goes down, until in the moon there's very few degrees of freedom at all.
General principle is quite clear. I'm sorry. Yeah. 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 Mrs. Gill says that the general principle is quite clear, but she finds the numbers off-putting, and she'd like to know exactly to what they refer.
They refer to the octave relationship whereby frequency doubles or halves itself in completing a cycle. You study the octaves of on the piano. Each successive C is double in frequency as you go from the bass to the higher note. This is part of the music of the spheres. And it's a convenient way of encouraging Mrs. Gill to free herself from all those orders of laws during a half hour. You depart from the 96 orders of laws which you share with other.
Mrs. Gill says she's allowed to forget about them, is she?
No, it's all right, as long as you're sure that during a half hour you are freeing yourself from all these orders of laws, and you're not pretending. And when you take a deep dive, as the Shankaracharya suggests, you're free of the lot. So it's an incentive, Mrs. Gill.
In relation to this subject, the meaning that will be done on earth, as it is today. Can you say, in relation to this subject, the meaning of "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven"?
Not better than it's said in the Lord's Prayer, which is a really exact description of the smaller octave that is being shown as the diagram this week. Said in the purest possible words that couldn't possibly be said better in that form. Our Father which art in the heavens, it's plural, is the unmanifest Son, and it has three aspects. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. On lower levels of the ray, as they are above, as they are nearer the source. I'm afraid I'm rather doing what I suggested you didn't do, Fleming, making things higher or lower. But I mean nearer or further from the source. And then comes the injunction about what a school of people trying to realize this Father in heaven should pay attention to. They should discriminate between heavenly bread and ordinary physical bread. They should practice regarding others in the same way as they regard themselves. We are machines. We should allow that other people can be machines just as we are. That we don't pile up debts by demanding things from them which we couldn't possibly fulfill ourselves. To dismiss our debts as we dismiss the debt of those who look to us. And then lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Do not let us pat ourselves in the back by saying we're doing any of this at all. temptation is to regard oneself as the doer. If we avoid that, we're delivered from evil.
Why is what? Why is it lead us not into temptation?
Yes, this is a great question. I should ask your Father in heaven.
Have we had that one? What is man's role?
Yes, well, I think Ronald Hyde's question, what is man's role in all this, shows in this week's material and diagram that man could have a very important role. Only what does the word man refer to? Is it just anybody? Looked at from the psychological or subtle level, invertebrates, vertebrates, and man describe different levels of humanity. I mean, some of us are earthworms, invertebrates, some of us are sheep, and a few people, I believe, could be described as man. Man who fulfills his intended office as regent of organic life, carrying out the will of the Creator. So it's a good question to ask oneself, what is meant in this diagram by man?
And then I think the next one is why are vertebrates suspended between two levels?
Well, nothing is really more suspended than anything else. You'll find it's probably better drawn this week. It was rather a rough drawing last week, and I'm sorry that I showed vertebrates as being suspended.
I think that's probably all that you
Yes.
want to do.
So you see, what interest was shown in this by the people who hadn't heard this before, 40 years after we first heard it, in spite of the fact that there was some commotion downstairs during the meeting, and apparently it was the police chasing a burglar who was supposed to be on the roof. We were all laughing very much afterwards, wondering whether it was one of the new people at the meeting. And Nolan Hyde tells me that the thing like that happened in New Zealand, and the person taking the group, on seeing the legs of a burglar coming through the skylight, said, "If you go back up where you came, we'll forget about it." Don't forget that burglar and police are all part of the Paramatman, but they wouldn't know the subtle level which was governing the meeting of this group.
You want to?
There is Mr. McClelland here. Oh yes, you really came into your own, McClelland. You hit the ball on the head several times at your meeting. I will be giving answers, I hope, to Dr. Connell, the next one, but you several remarks of which one might pick one.
Mr. McLaren asked, in reference to the diagram, is it too directional? The order implies that it moves the moon, which is dead matter, in the direction of the absolute nothing. And there is the alternative, which is directly opposite, going towards the absolute all.
And it certainly is two-directional. We can know that in a number of different ways, which are described in this week's paper. So your question led straight on. It's two-directional, and that mustn't be forgotten. Yes.
Again, Mr. McLaren said, is the term octave, as used here, not merely a convenient term to give us an understanding, but an exact term with exact parallels with music? It's not a loose and light term.
No, you're quite right. It is an exact way, an exact notation, which is used in sounds quite often in relation to the octaves of radio, of electromagnetic radiation, isn't it? It's a way of describing vibrations, and it's an exact term, and it has an analogy with various of the musical systems which have existed in history. Because the same sequence of notes in music is repeated an octave higher or an octave lower. And the same is true of the universe, the laws of the universe, and the same is true of the organization of incoming vibrations into experiences in consciousness, in our brains. Anyway, you'll hear more about that if you ask. Well, I think that's all. I just wanted to say that I thought that Peter Edie's group was very interesting. Could you keep an eye on the time? My watch is down. Peter Edie, of course, has the advantage of most of us, because you were brought up knowing Mr. Ostensky from quite early childhood, and you used to attend those parties, children's parties you used to give. Well, it came out very well, all this background at this meeting. You seem to have got the right combination of feeling and logic. I'll give you just an example from that meeting.
Lady Clwyd said, can I ask you to make me see what the kind of being which inhabits the universe can refer to? And Mr. Edie said, in the wider sense, can it refer to all beings from the nebular world in the ray of creation? For example, to invertebrates in the lateral octave. Do these not all live and die and have rest according to their own measure of time and space? Everything is worlds within worlds, through the center of which runs the line of absolute pure consciousness.
Well, I don't think that could be put much better. We got so accustomed to thinking that mankind, and particularly the big scientist, is the only conscious being in the universe, that it seems strange to us to have it explained that the whole universe is conscious, and that there are many beings, each with their own degree of consciousness and their own degree of life. That life, the universe is alive, and that man, or organic life on Earth, is not the only type of life. It's a shocker today. I mean, it's very unscientific. I think that's what your question, Lady Clwyd, was directed towards, isn't it? Can I ask you to make me see what the kind of being which inhabits the universe can refer to? Many different kinds of beings inhabit the universe. Being implies life, doesn't it? And if you, first of all, have the idea that everything in the universe is alive with its own form of life, you'll see what's meant. You know it already, of course. Then there are two questions at quite different meetings on rather similar matters. How much time have we got?
Just after 25 past.
Oh, yes. One was at the Reeds Group at Askill Lodge.
Where Mr. Harris said, Mrs. Harris, yes. Please, could more be said about the impulse for all measurements,
Or
movements, having a particular momentum according to the kind of being which inhabits the universe,
Just take the species in organic life, something near us, because we are one species of the biosphere. You can see that the movements in organic life have a particular momentum according to the kind of being, according to the species. It's everywhere in biology. That the Earth's crust and everything on the Earth is kept going by the different kinds of movements in organic life, determined by the different kind of species. And then a similar one,
with reference to the Shankaracharya's answer,
from the Frensham meeting.
In this universe, the impulse for all movements is given by the laws of nature. Can this quotation be taken on levels other than the physical level?
Yes, I think when the Shankaracharya uses the term nature and the laws of nature, he refers both to the big world and all that's in it, and to the little world, which is its epitome within the solar system, nature as exemplified by the planets and by organic life on Earth, and also in relation to the individual nature of each one of us, which is built on the same plan. And these are under certain laws. And as one of the alchemists said, the laws of nature are like millstones and will grind you to powder unless you learn how to become the miller. So we study the laws of nature, and we have to see them on the physical level and on the subtle level and on the causal level. Well, I think that's where we stop today. But use this. See if this new look at our system impels you to take this deep dive and get some meaning into the word Paramatman, or Creator, and help you to know Him. For to know Him is to love Him. And love lends you wings. At the last meditation meeting last week, to get around as much as possible in due course. But we've only rolled off a comparatively few copies, so I would like today all the old hands who have helped us in relation to the meditation to take copies. We will provide further copies for others later, but it's important to us that the old hands who want to continue to help with the meditation should soak in the entirely new look which the Shankaracharya gave us at these last audiences. We need to soak in those before we talk to people or guide them.